Human cognition is essentially a non-deterministic execution environment, and it is highly prone to severe runtime errors. Relying on sheer willpower or self-awareness to spot your own flawed thinking, well, that's just a failing architectural strategy, and it's one that will absolutely crash your decision-making processes when real capital and code are on the line. We really need to start treating our cognitive biases not as personal moral failings, but as systemic logic bugs that require deterministic, external patches. Take confirmation bias, for instance. It's a fundamental logic bug. Your brain just automatically filters out facts that disprove whatever theory or outcome you desperately want to be true. It's exactly like ignoring edge case warnings just because the happy path happens to work. And the crazy thing is, psychological research proves that simply knowing you have this bias completely fails to stop it. Attempting to self-debias is futile. You actually need an external patch to interrupt the execution flow.
And this really illustrates the root cause of the bug. Human cognition operates in two distinct modes. Your logical System 2 has incredibly strict processing limits, and it fatigues super easily. So when you're burnt out after a sprint, or you're getting overly emotionally attached to some brilliant new architecture idea, your brain constantly drops you back down to the fast, biased, emotional System 1 default. You end up losing your analytical rigor exactly when you need it the most, which silently introduces critical errors right into your reasoning.
Now, enterprise data shows that knowledge workers using agentic AI are saving about 6.4 hours a week. But for us, the true utility isn't just clawing back time. It's redeploying these autonomous pipelines as a non-fatiguing external system too. We're talking about a tireless agent designed specifically to hold you accountable when your internal logic inevitably fails. It's really about building a secondary control plane for your own mind. So let's walk through 3 specific Make.com deployment scenarios to automate around these cognitive bugs. Scenario 1, the Contrarian Digest. This architecture forces human debate. The target bias we are tackling here is confirmation bias. The trigger is passive data capture. The modules combine a standard bookmarking tool, an LLM, and a delivery mechanism. And the outcome? It injects disconfirming data directly into an adversarial framework. We are systematically ensuring you cannot just ignore dissenting variables. Here's how it flows. The pipeline triggers seamlessly the moment you passively bookmark a new project idea or a GitHub repository. It immediately routes that data to an LLM that is explicitly prompted to act as a skeptical, ruthless competitor whose only job is to find fatal flaws in your logic. Finally, it delivers an active interruption, think like an automated Slack ping at 8 a.m., that you are physically forced to acknowledge before you can proceed with your day. It completely breaks your cognitive happy path. Scenario 2, the sunk cost kill switch. This is an architecture specifically engineered to stop you from throwing resources at dying projects. With this setup, we replace emotional attachment with cold, hard logic. Target bias, the sunk cost fallacy. The trigger here relies on specific time or cost thresholds. Utilizing a time tracker database and a strict logic rule module, this pipeline automatically audits the actual hours or dollars you've spent against your historical output. It forces an objective evaluation of the project's viability, completely removing your ego from the equation. So once a predefined threshold is breached, the pipeline instantly initiates a pre-mortem check. It halts execution entirely and delivers a hard stop prompt. This demands a formal, objective evaluation before a single extra line of code or dollar of capital is deployed. The beauty of this is that you write the rules when you are sober and rational, specifically to hold yourself accountable later when you are emotionally attached and biased. Scenario 3, expense reversal review. This one is all about attacking the momentum of bad financial or operational commitments. The target bias here is the escalation of commitment. Doubling down on a bad investment just to protect your ego. The trigger is an idle API or subscription database. By stringing together a billing API, Make.com, and an action module, this configuration automatically surfaces those unused server instances or stalled SaaS tools, the ones you keep telling yourself you'll use eventually, but simply never do. By aggressively scanning for those idle APIs and delivering a one-click kill button directly into your workspace, this workflow completely short-circuits the escalation of commitment. The automation does all the heavy, guilt-inducing lifting required to find the waste. All you have to do is just click cancel, instantly removing the cognitive friction. But obviously, deploying all these agentic workflows requires strict governance, which brings us to architecture governance and the interruption layer. We absolutely must ensure we don't just swap out a cognitive bias for an automation bias.
If you offload 100% of your critical thinking to agents, you create what's known as decision deprivation. When you delegate the actual problem decomposition entirely to AI, you shift from being an active creator to just a passive algorithmic supervisor. This passive spectator syndrome severely erodes workforce skill ceilings, and honestly, worse than that, it rots your own deep domain intuition over time.
And this presents a severe structural dilemma for builders. If you operate merely as a human on the loop, you effectively become a moral crumple zone, meaning you just absorb the liability and the blame for unseen automated errors when things inevitably break. To prevent this, you have to mandate human-in-a-loop practice friction. You literally need to force yourself to periodically write code from scratch or do manual log analysis just to retain true executive ownership over the systems you manage. Because at the end of the day, if you cannot audit an agent's reasoning path through complete trace logs, you have zero business running it in production. You simply cannot debug what you cannot observe. When you deploy autonomous software to patch your own cognitive bugs, you have to ensure you aren't abdicating your responsibility as a critical thinker in the process. So take a hard look at your current tech stack. Are your automations actually making you smarter, or are they just making it faster to execute on your own blind spots?